Welcome back to our Excellence in Sales videos training for Mattress One. My name is Art Dominguez. Today we're actually joined by several of our illustrious district managers and regional manager from Florida. So I'm going to be getting them a little bit involved in some of the training we're going to be doing today. And today we're going to be talking about objections. In a perfect world, we never get them, but the reality is objections happen almost every time. We ask for the sale, we're going to get some kind of objection, and how we handle that many times will make the difference between making a sale or making a friend and having them walk on us. By the way, feel free to pause this video if you haven't up, and you can always come back to it, right? So, objections. I've heard salespeople say, that when I've asked these questions, well, how many objections do we have? How many objections do we get from our customers? And I've heard folks say, well, it's only one objection, money. No, that's not necessarily the case. And then I've heard from other folks, oh, there's millions of different objections. Millions of different objections. That's not true either. The reality is that it's going to fall somewhere way in between. I've asked this question of salespeople before when I've done trainings with several salespeople on the sales floor, and I want to ask it today with some of our district managers who probably combined have, if not 100 years of sales experience, close to it. What are some of the objections that we get on the sales floor, that we get from folks? Get them out.
Price.
Okay, price. So we hear price. What else do we hear?
Gotta bring my spouse.
Spouse, significant other. We'll call it significant other. What else do we hear?
Be my first stop.
First stop. What else we got?
The house isn't ready.
Not ready, the timing isn't right.
The price is gonna be better next week on Memorial
Okay.
Day.
So timing, right, we can call that timing, it'll be better then. My house isn't ready. What other kind of objections do we get? Anything else? How about want to shop around? Anybody ever get that one? Or am I the only one? Get that one? There's a lot of people nodding yes. All right, so shop around. What else? I'm surprised no one said this, but the all, think about it. Think about it. We get that one too. The reality is, and I've done this numerous times with lots and lots of salespeople in the room, sometimes 20 to 30 salespeople, and we never get past 8. We never do. Never even close to 10. Never gotten past 8. The same objections come up over and over and over again. They really do, and maybe worded different, maybe in different forms. It may not be, I need to bring my spouse. It means I need to bring my mother. I need to bring whomever. The reality is we have a huge advantage in what we do because these objections don't come up at the end. You ask most salespeople, well, they came up at the end, and they act surprised that it came up. The reality is these objections don't come up at the end. They come up somewhere usually within the first 5 minutes of the presentation. When we ask a guest, hey, welcome to Mattress One. Have you been anywhere? Have you shopped anywhere? Have you seen anything? Somewhere along the line, they're going to tell you, well, this is my first stop. Or, well, I'm starting to get ideas. I love that. Or when you ask, who's this mattress for? And they say, well, it's for me and my whomever. That happens within the first usually 5 to 10 minutes of the presentation. And believe me, what's going to happen in 45 minutes, it's going to come out. The objection is going to come up. And too many times we act surprised. We have said, oh, I can't believe they got to bring back their spouse, or they want to shop around. They've told us from the beginning what they're going to tell us in 45 minutes. So if that's the case, our entire presentation should be geared towards that. And it should be geared towards addressing the person who's not there. If it's, well, it's for me and my husband, me and my wife, well, then your entire presentation should be geared towards the person who's not there, so that later on, when it does come up, you can address that. You can say, well, you know, according to everything we talked about, you said they would like this. And if it's to shop around, it's the first place I've been to, your entire presentation should be geared towards talking about the benefits of buying at Mattress One. We're the largest independent mattress dealer in the country. Our price guarantee, our comfort guarantees, all those things should be woven into your presentation so that when and if that objection comes around, you can let them know why this is the best place to purchase, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to focus on. There's a few things on this video we're going to talk about, but that's the first one. Knowing that the objection is coming. Knowing that it's coming and be prepared for it. You know that it's going to come in the very beginning of the presentation, what that objection is going to be. So gear your presentation to address that when it does come up in 45 minutes. Now, most objections, and I'm not going to say all objections, but most objections are not, contrary to what a lot of folks will say, are not based on price. They're not. If that were the case, then we wouldn't be able to sell a customer a more expensive mattress when they've come from somewhere else looking at a cheaper mattress. How does that happen? It's because the objection isn't always based on price. Most of the time it's not. What the objections are based on, all of these objections, 99% of them, are based on fear. I don't know if you can read that, but it's fear. So what do I mean by that? I have some district managers here. If it's price, what are they afraid of?
They're afraid they might make the wrong decision when it might be cheaper up the street.
Yeah, they're afraid that they're paying too much. Maybe they're afraid that they're paying too much. Or if their significant other, if they need to bring their significant other, what are they afraid of?
They're afraid their significant other will kill them.
They'll kill them because they don't like it.
They can't exchange it.
They won't be able to change it. They're afraid that they'll be stuck with something. It's their first stop. They're afraid that, hey, I might like something better somewhere else. If it's the timing, I'm afraid I'm going to be stuck with something without any recourse to change or upgrade. Shop around, same thing, they're afraid. It is based on fear. It's based on fear. We're the same way. If we think about the times that we don't purchase something, it's because, well, what if it goes on sale? Or what if it's not right? So fear keeps us from moving forward, from making decisions. Same thing with customers. And to that effect, the hardest objection to overcome, the infamous, hated, I need to think about it, that's part of the problem why we have such a hard time as a sales force, as salespeople, to overcome that objection. Because the I need to think about it, it's not a real objection. It's not a real objection. The reality is they do not need to think about it because they've been thinking about it for, on average, 1.5 to 2 years. That's what statistics tell us. That from the time the customer says, well, this mattress is horrible, I need to change mattresses, to the time they step into our store, it's between 18 to 24 months. So they've been thinking about it. So the reality is that they don't need to think about it, and we tend to address it incorrectly when that objection comes up. And part of the reason is because we're not communicating. Communicating at its core is just the transference of ideas and thoughts from one person to another. That's all it is. And to be able to do that, we need to be able to speak the same language, or the words mean the same thing. So when we address, I need to think about it, what a lot of times I've seen salespeople do is, change the whole dynamics of the presentation. Up until that moment, we've been friendly, we've been their helper, we've been consulting with them and partnering with them to find the right bed. I need to think about it comes up, and everything changes. All of a sudden we ask them, well, what do you need to think about? Is it the bed? Is it the company? And forgive me if anybody does this, I've done this before and I don't do it anymore. Is it me? That's pathetic. Okay? Yes, it's you, by the way. No, it's not the question that they have. That's not the objection. The objection is not that they need to think about it. The objection is they're afraid. They're afraid. They're afraid to make a bad decision. They're afraid to pay too much. They're afraid it's not going to be the right mattress. So I had a mentor teach me this years back, and it changed my closing ratio when that objection came up. It changed the way that I addressed the objection when it came up. And it was simply this exercise, and I challenge everybody listening to this and everybody in this room to train this. When the objection comes up, I need to think about it. Don't address the I need to think about it, change it to an objection that we can actually work. And what I do and what was taught to me is imagine that the customer is saying to you, I'm just afraid to make a bad decision. And you can address that. And when I turn it around, and when the customer says I need to think about it, you say, I understand. I would be afraid to make a bad decision too. And this is key. That's what you're saying, isn't it? I've been doing this for years, and I've yet to have a customer say no. Because that's what you're saying, isn't it? They almost always, let's say, I'll put the almost in, they almost always say, yeah, that's what it is. And when you do this, you're gonna see the stress come off their shoulders will drop a little bit, they'll say, yeah, you know, that's what I'm saying. So imagine that what they're saying to you is, I'm afraid to make a bad decision. How would you address that customer? Would you address them with the, well, why are you afraid to make a bad decision? No, you know, we would address them with empathy, okay? We would address them with kindness. We would still not lose that partnership that we've had with them up until that point. The walls will not come up because anybody that's ever done the what do you need to think about, you can sense it. The customer, immediately the walls come up and the defense comes, now it's you against me. But if we change that just by saying, I understand, I'm afraid to make bad decisions too. It's human nature. That's what you're saying, isn't it? If you can imagine that, and if you can reword that to them that way and say, that's what you're saying, isn't it? They're almost always going to say, well, yeah, that objection we can overcome. That objection we can overcome because we have the policies in place. Afraid to make a bad decision, we give you 4 months. We don't charge you a 10% restocking fee. You can get a bed for equal or greater value, and we just ask that you pay the delivery on that, an exchange delivery on that. And here's the closing question. That's fair, isn't it? Who's going to say no to that?
And the difference.
And equal or greater value, they pay the difference. Thank you. If they're afraid that there's, well, it's going to be too much, we have a price guarantee in place. If they're afraid that their spouse won't like it, again, we have the comfort guarantee. So those are things that we can actually address and we can actually overcome. It's a true objection if someone has the fear of making a bad decision. So just in closing, when you hear the I need to think about it next time, don't address it as what do you need to think about, because that's not what they're telling you. That's not what they're saying to you. What they're saying to you is, I'm vulnerable, I'm afraid to make a bad decision. How can you help me? Address that, and I promise you, you'll see a higher closing ratio. As before, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, any suggestions, I do appreciate the feedback. You can contact me at art.dominguez@mattress1.com, and look forward to hearing from you.